got more Clone Wars content to talk about today, ladies and gentlemen. I'm excited for the game. It's a feeling I haven't felt in quite a long time. We start off with the Ahsoka, Kenobi, and Anakin reworks. Click on the card in the top right-hand corner to check them out if you haven't seen it already. Anakin, he is crazy good, and I think he's only going to get better throughout the rest of the year. We'll talk a bit about that in this video today, but this is a video I've been kind of stalling for a while because all the big news dropping this week. But basically, because of Star Wars Celebration, we got a lot of confirmation and alleged conversations people had with the developers at Star Wars Celebration regarding the territory battles, regarding future reworks, as well as talking about the details of the territory battles, as well as maybe mods 3.0 in the future. A lot of stuff we got to break down in this video, so let's just get right into it. So before we start diving into the alleged conversations people had with the developers one-on-one at Celebration when they were at the booth, I first want to talk about the Galactic War Report. They did a podcast with the developers that they recorded, and the developers confirmed a lot of stuff and kind of hinted at some stuff here. And then we'll take a look at the conversations, which kind of pair nicely with this podcast, because the screenshots that we're going to see later came out before the podcast, and then the podcast confirmed a lot of the stuff on those screenshots, which gives some sort of credibility to those screenshots. I think we'll see. So I'm going to break out the important bits that we need for this particular video today to help you prepare for the future of Galaxy of Heroes. But down below, there's a link. Check it out if you want to listen to the whole thing. It's a pretty fun podcast. They talk about a ton of stuff in this podcast, but let's get to the first important bit of information is the new characters that are coming to Galaxy Heroes through territory battles.
For Hoth, we started off with the light side, then eventually got the dark side,
right?
For the reciprocal side of the battle. Do you know which side we're going to start on?
Yeah, so I believe we're going to do dark side to start with. Actually, this time would be kind of cool. You'd be, defending against these invading clones and things like that. So that kind of gives us a lot of kind of interesting sort of perspectives we can work with.
So right now we got a Hoth territory battles going on in Galaxy of Heroes right now, and in the podcast they confirmed that they're going to start off with the dark side, whereas when Hoth came out they started off with light side territory battles, and then eventually the dark side. They're going to do the inverse here. They're going to start off with dark side.
Are we expecting any, like when the territory battle started with Hoth, we got a slew of new characters, like through guild store unlocks and
all the map and
newly
stuff
introduced.
Like
yeah,
that.
Are we expecting an influx again? Or
yeah, well, the map is going to have a lot of new mechanics and things on it. It's going to be a pretty similar experience to Hoth in a lot of ways, but then some totally new, unique things as well. So yeah, I would expect sort of a similar kind of breakdown of like stuff that's going to be on that map, whether it's new characters or stuff that you're earning, throughout what you're playing. But that being said, like, I don't have any specific characters I want to announce it, but you can always think about characters from the Clone Wars maybe that are conspicuously absent from our game.
The next thing they talked about that's kind of important to point out is they talked about how the Hoth battles as well as the Geonosis battles, they're going to have some similar characteristics and some different things, but one of the similar things that we're going to see between the two is the fact that you can get shards of characters through the map. So as you see with the light side territory battles, you get Rolo shards. In the dark side territory battles, you would get Imperial probe droid shards. So they're going to bring back the same exact thing, and they didn't quite specify what the characters that they're going to be releasing, but they kind of allude to it throughout the whole entire podcast because they talk a lot about the adventures of Anakin Skywalker, Kenobi, and Padme, because that was kind of a core theme or core trio for episode 2 and surrounding the Battle of Geonosis. So there's a very good chance, whether light side or dark side, we could get Padme shards coming. And then as we can speculate further, Padme, she's kind of an important link leading down to dark side Anakin's journey. That's a whole other video right there, but I just want to kind of give my thoughts on what they could be. But they also talked about in the podcast that, you guys can figure out what important characters are we missing from the Clone Wars era. So there's probably some Jedi. Maybe we could see, maybe they add new Jedi. But in terms of rewards, I'm thinking we're probably going to see Padme, kind of like how we see Rolo as one of the rewards here.
Other thing that we know that, like in the original territory battles, one of the coolest parts of it, from a gameplay perspective, was the ATST boss battle.
Oh, sure.
Do we have a similar kind of boss structure?
We have one of the monsters that Obi-Wan and Padme went against in the Geonosis arena.
So with the light side territory battles for Hoth, as we see, there's the very last mission, you find an ATST. And they're going to bring something similar to that for the dark side territory battles. They already kind of confirmed one of the bosses that you're going to be seeing. So this is one reason why I think Padme's coming, because in the podcast, they confirmed that one of the bosses we're going to be seeing is going to be one of the beasts that Anakin Skywalker, Kenobi, and Padme fight in the Battle of Geonosis. If you guys remember, there's three weird looking creatures. You got one cat looking thing, you had a rhino looking thing, and then you had like some giant mantis type of beast. So they said we're going to see one of those monsters that are going to be one of the bosses, and I'm guessing kind of like how you need like Rebel Officer Leia Organa to do this special mission for Hoth battles. There's a good chance we need Padme to complete the special missions for that particular new boss that they're going to be bringing in. And they said it's going to be a pretty tough boss. That it's going to basically be big and scary, and it's going to be slicing and dicing at you, trying to kill you. So it's going to be cool to bring it to life. And they say that the artwork's going to be amazing. I'm really looking forward to reliving that moment from the Battle of Geonosis.
Focusing, like you said, your bugs for sure, your separatists in general, I think are going to be the ones to focus on. I remember I don't know if I'd call it fondly, how Count Dooku would just counter my characters into oblivion. It might feel really cool to just do that to a bunch of clones.
And now the next thing we got to talk about is regarding how to prepare for territory battles, because it's a brand new experience, and obviously we can kind of assume, even besides the fact they confirmed this, we could assume that we're going to need to have a heavy focus on Galactic Republic as well as Separatists and all the sub branches that kind of spring out beneath of that big parent tree right there. So they talk a lot about in this video that, hey, you know what? Maybe you should focus on your bugs and Separatists, especially since Darkside Territory Battles is coming around. They're going to probably have specific battles for Geonosians, for Separatists. They talk about how Dooku will get special bonuses. If you guys remember in the Hoth Territory Battles, depending on certain key characters that you needed, such as Darth Vader, Commander Luke, Rolo, the list goes on and on and on, they get special bonuses. So I can only assume that with the Geonosis Territory Battles, they talk about Dooku a lot getting bonuses. Probably Dooku's going to be a key character for this Geonosis battle. Maybe General Grievous, and maybe Kenobi, Anakin, Padme. We can kind of get a good idea of the key characters from the Clone Wars era that would be needed. So bugs and Separatists, if you're trying to make sure you're getting the most out of this, they talk about specifically how these characters and factions are going to be important for territory battles. So two more quick things to point out from this podcast. I couldn't quite understand one of the points they were making because it sounded like someone was recording with the phone in the back of a big room, but it sounded like that if there was a dark side territory battle going on, the character shards you would earn are going to be light side oriented. So maybe we get Padme shards the first time we're going through, and then we get some dark side shards for the light side path of the Geonosis battle. I couldn't quite hear them, but that sounded like what they were talking about. And lastly, they said there are going to be some big announcements building up to May 4th. May 4th is a obviously big moment for Star Wars, and it sounds like we should expect some other big news.
Like the Separatists, Galactic Republic, those kind of folks, definitely take a look at those characters and see, which ones you may want to start investing in. But, of course, we'll have more to announce around the Galactic Territory Battles in the coming weeks or so as we lead up to, May 4th and stuff. Is obviously a big beat for us as well. So stay tuned for some big announcements on May 4th for sure around what's coming for the Territory Battles.
So those are the key points I just wanted to break down from that podcast, because this is the stuff that developers actually talked about and hinted towards. Padme they kind of alluded her being in the game. Reworks for a lot of things, what factions to focus on, what can you expect from territory battles. But now I want to talk about the things that were coming out before this podcast interview kind of sprung up, and a lot of the stuff that we're going to see right now kind of corresponds with the things that were said in the podcast. So this kind of gives some sort of credibility to these screenshots we're going to see, and all these screenshots we're showing today came out before the podcast, and they talk about conversations they had one-on-one with the devs. The devs love this game. They're very passionate about the game. When they meet fans, they like to talk about stuff, and I don't know if maybe they intended this stuff to go public or some of the stuff might be false. So I'll say take it with a grain of salt for right now, but seeing what we just talked about, they kind of correspond pretty well to a lot of these screenshots we'll see. As we heard in the podcast, Geonosians, you're going to want to focus on them. They explicitly said in the interview, you might want to look at your Geonosian faction, and clones will be getting reworks and new characters as well. So right there, a lot of cool stuff. I mean, we can kind of assume just based off the event and what they're adding and reworking, clones need a lot of reworks. We need new characters to kind of bolster this faction. The Galactic Republic faction and Separatists, to some sort of extent, are pretty dead factions that don't really interact well, so we can expect a lot more stuff coming. Darkside Territory Battles Geonosis coming before Lightside. The developers confirmed that. This was not talked about in the interview, and I see this a couple times throughout a couple of screenshots. They talk about mods 3.0 coming before the end of the year, and there's probably a good thing to that and scary news to that. The good news is with mods 2.0, for example, that was released about a year ago now, They added a ton of quality of life updates, being able to filter for certain stats and whatnot. So a lot of great things in terms of making your life easier and to manage mods came out. So there's a good chance of mods 3.0 because there's still a lot of features we need for mod management. With mods 2.0, they brought in a new layer to mods, and obviously that was 6.mods that we have now. And then the slicing feature, which is kind of a paywall to some extent. There's a good chance that they might add 7.mods, or maybe they'll add the next layer of 6.mods because we only have 6E mods right now. Maybe they'll add 6D and then C, B, and A mods. We don't know. Lots of other Galactic Republic reworks happening, such as Koth and Kit Fisto, two Jedi that are very outdated, and Koth and Kit Fisto never really had that much of use. Kit Fisto had maybe a couple weeks of viability at the early part of the game, but by and large, these characters were pretty weak. And the screenshot goes a little bit further with a couple more lines here, and one of them, the most important one, is that and at least one new Jedi on the council from the prequels. And let me pull up the Jedi Council real quick so we can maybe make some predictions on that. So we're just going to use the Clone Wars wiki page. Basically, during the Clone Wars era, these were the known Jedi sitting on the council. We have Plo Koon, Mace Windu, Yoda. Maybe one of the new Jedi we're going to get, Ki-Adi-Mundi. That makes a lot of sense. What about the Dread Attack on the Wookiees? Like, seriously. Maybe he'll have Wookiee synergy. Got some other guys. Koth here. Shaak Ti, that's another character. I actually said I'd love to see Shaak Ti in this game in my prediction for what characters they could add in the game. Evan Peel. So there's a lot of Jedi. If they're going to release one new Jedi from the council during the Clone Wars era, there's a lot of big name Jedi on this list that we haven't seen just yet. But Shaak Ti, Ki-Adi-Mundi, I think those are probably the more known Jedi out of the rest of this list right here, I think. And now the other screenshot that came out kind of builds on top of that. It says the same thing. First territory battles is going to be dark sides, the dark side aspect. Separatists and Galactic Republic will be very important factions. We already talked about that quite extensively. They're trying to make the factions more viable, and again, they bring up the references to Koth, Kit Fisto, and they said, think about the Jedi that were at the Battle of Geonosis. So again, these screenshots kind of coordinate very well with that interview that we did. Adding new characters on the special missions. They told me that the special missions will be taking place at the Coliseum, and we will have to defeat one of the beasts. So they said it'll be like a mini raid. They also used that terminology in the podcast. And here we go again. Without really saying it, they said Padme would be one of the new characters, and they specifically said to gear and mod your bugs. Geonosians, very important faction for this. I mean, the Battle of Geonosis, it's the home world for Geonosians, so that's kind of a no-brainer right there. They also said clones will be extremely important. They're adding new clones. And then they are not done with mods, which talks about mods 3.0. They told these people apparently to save up your guild event currency. So probably, you know, at the guild store or the guild event store, we have characters like Wampa and Hermit Yoda. Now Darth Malik, of course, if you beat his event, I'm thinking we're probably going to get kind of guild event new characters that are more specific to the Battle of Geonosis. So take all those Jedi that we thought of and all those new clones and whatnot, and then imagine them being in the guild event store. We're probably going to see new characters besides being added on the map, probably be added in the store as well. And this last part right here, of course, this doesn't really confirm much. And again, we're kind of assuming this is hopefully true. But the Capital Games developer that developed the Malik event said they will do similar events in the future with other Star Wars eras. This guy thinks maybe Jedi Luke will be it. Maybe they'll create an Anakin Skywalker event later this year, because I only can imagine they're doing all this prequel stuff. One, because they haven't really done much Clone Wars stuff yet. But two, they kind of want to build up to the story of Anakin falling to the dark side, whether that's this year or next year, who knows. Knights of the Old Republic was a 2-year project. I'm hoping if dark side Anakin's not going to be a 2-year project, hopefully before the next movie comes out, episode 9, they'll get it taken care of. So this is all pretty much the news that's floating around right now between the podcast and these screenshots with the conversations people had with devs one-on-one before the podcast was released. I'm excited. This is just all this stuff that gets me hyped. This is why I play Star Wars. I am a huge fan of the Clone Wars era, and all this stuff coming, this leaves me very excited. So let me know down below, what do you think? Are there some other dots you're connecting that maybe I didn't connect after reading and listening to everything? I'd love your thoughts down below, and let me know what you guys are most excited for coming forward, because this stuff probably is going to be hitting us quite soon, and May 4th, keep your eyes peeled for that. All right, guys, like if you did enjoy the video, comment down below, and subscribe so you're not missing a thing, and we will talk again very soon. Peace out.
Party Richter, Party Richter. Get down, 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 down. Party Richter, Party Richter. Son of a bitch. Party Richter, Party Richter. Get down, down, down.